All right, I'd like to start off by saying Barakatah Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Chakodash. Welcome to another live lesson. The name of this one is Out with the Old and In with the New. And pretty much that title just came to me. I was putting together a lesson last night, or yesterday actually, and I didn't get a chance to get into it. Um, so here we go. And this is basically centered around the I'm gonna show you a video. Elder Apostle Tar already reacted to it. A video that the up and coming young elder Yashalam from the main camp in New York put up, dealing with Trump and a speech that he gave, and it prompted me to look into some of the stuff that he said. Not so much as for research, as far as getting the information about the system that they're putting in place, but for the purpose of you know see what the Google said about some of these terms. I'll put it in that fashion. So, out with the old, in with the new. Out with the old, in with the new is a common idiom that signifies leaving behind old things, ideas, or habits in favor of new ones, often to embrace progress and change. All right. And that's pretty much what he's saying, dealing with the healthcare. And pretty much that's going to trickle down to the economy, just the whole getting rid of all the old ways and bringing about the new ways, which the new ways are centered around technology. And that's why technology plays a major role in prophecy today. We've been speaking about this over and over and over and over and over again, because before we got here, the Spirit was on us to teach about it while we were on our way to where this world is at. The Lord had us speaking on it. And right now that it's actually happening, on a worldwide scale, the Lord has us speaking about it even more and more, because we always done videos on the MOTB, many, 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 many videos, So we're just doing more now because we're in that time, right? So it says it implies a fresh start and moving forward, leaving behind the past to make way for the future. And that's pretty much where we're at. We're in the future, and the future holds this beast system being set up into place with their, pretty much device or devices, dealing with the hand, mostly the hands, and the head, but mostly the hands, that are going to be used to be able to maneuver in this new world. There's no coincidence that there's a term Novus Ordo Seclorum on the back of the dollar bill, American dollar bill, mind you, in Latin, the New World Order. And, I believe I asked Chat GPT if that's talking about the New World Order, and they say no, or, because they're going to, and I wasn't going to sit there and put all the rules and all that, how, Esau did it, and then, brothers been doing the same thing, but the New World Order was put on there in Latin specifically because through America, which is the Patsy, as Anthony Hilder put it, the great Patsy, the New World Order has been pushed on the world. And pretty much this is what the Lord said would be happening in these times anyway. So when we go to Revelation, right, chapter 17, we can start at the first verse, very heavy chapter. And none of these scholars, none of these apologists, these trained apologists, pastors, and all these, none of them can break down the book of Revelation. None of them. All right, which shows you that the Lord is not dealing with them, because he said, surely the Lord power will do nothing, but he revealeth the secrets unto his servants, the prophets. So if they were servants of the Lord, if they were prophets of the Lord, if they were the actual anointed of the Lord, they would know the breakdown of Revelation, the whole book of Revelation, which they do not. All right. So Revelation 17:1, and there came one of the seven angels which had the seven vials, and talked with me, saying unto me, Come hither, I will show unto thee the judgment of the great whore that sitteth upon many waters. Now this great whore represents America, all right? And the waters represents peoples, nations, and tongues. When you go all the way down to the 15th verse, it explains what these waters are. And it's no coincidence that America is, you know, they another term for America is the great melting pot. Okay. And she's a great whore because all nations on the planet Earth, their leaders and the people are following after her ways. They're doing the bidding of America. They're pretty much patterning their lifestyle in these different countries for the lifestyles of America. They're abandoning, especially the younger generations, they're abandoning the old ways, the old gods for America. They actually put America and Esau, which they always worship Esau, at the top or the forefront of everything. That's why when you go to any country around the world, they're Americanized. There's a term called Americanization. You can look that up because America has had a great influence on the world in wickedness. And that's why the fifth verse says, and upon her forehead was a name written, Mystery, Babylon the Great, the greatest conglomeration of confusion. That's what the word Babylon means. Goes back to the word Babel, goes back to the Hebrew word Babal, which means confusion. All right. And this has been the greatest confusion or the greatest place on the planet Earth that has caused the most confusion ever. All right. It says the mother of harlots. Why? Because you could come to America and worship anything you want. Anything you want. A rock, a pebble, a person, a tree, anything you want, you could worship here. You could worship you could come up with a new religion today and have followers, and it's accepted here in America. Freedom of religion. Right? Matter of fact, let me move this up a little bit. It says, and abominations of the earth. Abominations is a dirty, filthy, wicked act or thing, which goes into what? The, happy people or the alphabet people lifestyle. Right? So now when we jump back to the second verse, it says, with whom the kings, which are the rulers of the earth, have committed fornication. Because all of these leaders on the planet Earth, have had to comply with the mandates, the ways of America, their ideologies, philosophies, so on and so forth, in order to partake, in the harlot's traffic. That's a lesson, the harlot's traffic. And the inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk with the wine of her fornication. And the inhabitants of the earth is just that, all of the people of the earth. Because the kings or the rulers of these nations accepted the American ways and pushed it upon their, the peoples of their different countries. All right. So this is showing you that, America was used as that vehicle. Because when you read further down in this chapter, like I said, this chapter is heavy. When you read further down in this chapter, it tells you that this harlot was set up to go into perdition. I'm going to read the 11th verse. And the beast that was and is not, even he is the eighth. This is dealing with America. You had the ancient Roman Empire, which came back into power through America. And America is the eighth empire. So there were 7 heads, but there were really 8. When you read the book of Daniel, it speaks about a little horn in the book of Daniel 7. The little horn in Daniel 7 is America. The little horn in Daniel 8 is something totally different. And is of the 7 because America comes out of all 7 of these so-called European nations. They're all the same people. They're all Edomites. And here it says, and goeth into perdition. So from the moment that America was established, they were established even while Esau was conquering Gad and Reuben and Issachar and the other tribes. It was established that once they took this land, that was going to set up the very end to where America would be destroyed, because the word perdition means destruction. Now in Spanish, you have a something that sounds similar to this, which is perder, right? The word perder means to lose, all right, or lost. And that's what's happening to America. America is going to be lost or destroyed. Let's look up the word perdition real quick. The word there is apoleia, which the word apoleia goes back to the word Apollo, which means destruction. It says destroying, utter destruction of vessels, a perishing ruin, destruction of money, the destruction which consists of eternal misery. Hell, this is bullshit right here. But all of these you could apply. There's no such thing as hell. Hell is a myth. All right. Hell, when you go into the New Testament, when you look up the words for hell, majority of them go into the word Gehenna, which is a valley where they used to burn trash. And the other word that comes up is Hades, which is basically the grave, which the Romans, the Greeks, and all of them used, which they borrowed from the darker nations, going back to Babylon, Sumer, so on and so forth, Egypt, of a place where you go to be punished. All right, everlasting place of punishment. Where those are all just fables, myths. All right, so apoleia means to destroy, destruction. So this place, America, was set up to establish what they've established to eventually be destroyed. So now let's get to this video. I'm going to play from this point here, the 3-minute 54-second. I want you to hear what Donald J. Trump said, and you let me know if you can hear. Matter of fact, I'm going to bring it up just a little bit so you can see the time marker, timestamp. I got my face on the video because the scriptures say that I shall see thy teachers. Normally, I'm not even on here like that, but I did put it on there just, to obey what the scriptures say, thine eyes shall see thy teachers. So let's play it.
The most consequential and the largest bill.
And let me know if y'all can hear it. It should be. I set everything up. They changed out the layout in StreamYard, so I had to spend time trying to get, work my way around it. So let me know if you can hear it. A matter of fact, why don't I see any comments on here? Okay, the comment section is on. Let me see. Yeah, okay, there's a bunch of comments. So just let me know if you can hear that. I want to make sure before I keep playing it. Let me know if you can hear that, that little bit that I just played. Let me know if you can hear. Okay, I see it coming up, the comments. Loud and clear. All right, the water, elder. All right, so let's go.
In the history of Congress, I call it the great, big, beautiful bill. We call it different names, but it all means the same thing. And for decades, America's healthcare networks have been overdue for a high-tech upgrade, and that's what we're doing.
For a long time, America's health, whatever he said, was due for an upgrade. No, matter of fact, let's bring it back just a little bit.
In the history of Congress, I call it the great, big, beautiful bill. We call it different names, but it all means the same thing. And for decades, America's healthcare networks have been overdue for a high-tech upgrade. And
healthcare. The healthcare is due for an upgrade. All right, that's what they're saying, that the American healthcare is due for an upgrade, technological upgrade. Okay, and it's all about technology, and that's what I'm using, because pretty much what Trump is saying is that the healthcare, the healthcare they have set up is antiquated. It's old. It's outdated, and that's what I did. I put in. Matter of fact, let's a little more before we get into that.
what we're doing. The existing systems are often slow, costly, and incompatible with one another. But with today's announcement, we take a major step to bring healthcare into the digital age.
See? And that's another thing, into the digital age, because the world as we knew it back then has changed from the way things used to operate to everything being digitized. Okay?
Something that is absolutely vital. You got to do it. Moving from clipboards and fax machines into a new era of convenience, profitability.
Convenience is another word that Elder Pastor used years ago, where he said that they're going to make this, MOTB convenient, but that convenience is going to get you killed, deleted, because if you take that thing, you Israelites, you're going to be destroyed. And this is why the Spirit has us, so adamant to continuously pound and pound and pound, because the Lord is causing our mouths and our spirits to keep saying these things, because it's very important for you to listen to the message and not take that device. Because if you take that device, you out of there. And the elder Manata Zakba, probably about a month ago, 3 weeks ago or so, he sent the Elder Yashalam, a message to send to me of a question that a brother had asked on one of the lives, and Shalak never got around to it. But one of the questions he asked is the stizo, which is where you get the word karax, right? Which is the second root word to the word karagma, which is the Greek for the word mark in Revelation 13. He asked if the serpent's venom would also be considered a stizo. And the answer to that, the short answer is yes, it is, because it's a pricking in, but it's not the MOTB. All right, because you have people out there saying that serpent's venom was the MOTB, and it's not. All right, the MOTB is something physically inserted in you that allows you to buy and sell. All right, that's pretty much what it is. You had a lot of people out there, because how did people know that if you got the serpent's venom? Well, they would give you a certificate that said that you took it, and a lot of people were forging those certificates. So no, that's not the MOTB, but it is a form of stizo, or cutting into. All right. So now let's hear a little more.
And speed, and frankly, better health. That is absolutely vital. You got to do it. Moving from clipboards and fax machines into a new era of convenience, profitability, and speed. And
moving from the clipboards, basically the old way, because it's outdated. Let's go into this new era of digitalization, which is more convenient. It's a lot faster. The old ways, the antiquated ways, no longer should apply anymore. This is how these devils are painting the narrative. Everything is outdated. There's nothing, that works in conjunction with each other. We have to find a new solution, and the new solution is the digital age, this technologically advanced system that we're bringing on board. All right.
Frankly, better health for people.
So the key words was speed and convenience.
There you go, speed and convenience, as you heard the young elder say. So now what I did, this is before I even pulled up this video, because I heard the video yesterday. I've heard him say this before, and all I could think about is just outdated systems. So what I did was, on Google, I typed in outdated healthcare. Outdated healthcare refers to healthcare practices, technologies, or systems that are no longer considered the most effective or safe, and may be negatively impacting patient outcomes, costs, or access to care. And that's why he said everything is slow, that nothing is jiving with each other, you know. So we got to come up with a new solution because of this new technology that's out there. So it says this can encompass a range of issues, including outdated medical practices. You know, remember you say clipboards and all that, inefficient workflows, right? Because the workflows now is clipboards. You got to write stuff down, and you got to add it to the, you know, and then you have to have somebody that has to take all of those notes and commit them to a keyboard and you know, put it all up, you know, on the databases that they have. That's all. That's old the old ways of doing it. Lack of access to modern technology. See, so you got to always look at when they talk about modern technologies. The scriptures say that knowledge shall increase, and this is how these devils are able now to make the MOTB beast system speak through the actions of this technology that they have now. It says an inadequate infrastructure, right? Because the infrastructure is outdated, so we have to update it. We got the upgrade. All we have to do is let go of that old and bring in the new as a matter of convenience and speed, right? Here's a breakdown of some key aspects of outdated healthcare. It says lack of evidence-based care, right? Ignoring advancements. And the advancements is what? This technology. We can't ignore the technology. Remember what happened to Kodak, right? Kodak had an employee. So indirectly, Kodak invented the digital uh, photos for cameras. But they were presented the future, but they ignored it. So that individual that worked for them brought it to Sony, and Sony jumped all over it, which caused, and this was, damn, I forgot the year. 1985 was it, or 86? I can't remember. I did a lesson on it. And then, or was it? Yeah, I think it was around that time. And then what Sony did was they jumped on it. It took time, but eventually, I believe it was 1996, they really started getting it out there. And then by 2012, Kodak had to file for bankruptcy because the digital cameras and everything that was digital made their infrastructure obsolete, film and all that obsolete. So it took them a whole year and some change to be able to revamp their whole system, get rid of the old and bring in the new. And there was sometime, it was a year and some change. In 2013, they came back, and now they're still around because they had to conform to the new system. And that's what these devils are doing. So what they're doing is they're causing people to be shut out of the new system if they don't, you know, just like a business would be shut out of the new system if they don't comply with the demands of this emerging technology, which is the digital age. All right. See, so it says ignoring advancements, inefficient workflows and processes, right? Because they're saying that all that other stuff is old. It says paper-based systems, which is what? You know, documentation, printing, you know, and all of that stuff, having everything, you know, to be, you know, and then that this new digital age will free up room, and you know, you got these big ass rooms full of files that you keep, you know, from all your records. Everything is stored away neatly on the computer, on a database, and it doesn't take up rooms where you got to buy, you know, storage for all of these records. All right, lack of integration, right? Because you know these systems, the clipboard and all that, you can't integrate them. But now with the digital system, if you have healthcare, you can integrate it with other things and bring it all together into one. You know, so they're painting a picture of, yeah, we need this because, you know, it's going to make everything more efficient, more convenient, a lot more faster. But what they're not telling you is that this system that they're putting in place is the MOTB system, which MOTB basically is the micro CHIP, and that's going to lead to the destruction of a lot of you Israelites that take it. So it says long wait times. See, so now at the push of a couple of buttons, boom, boom, you can pull everything up. As to before, you had to, okay, what's your name? Okay, all right, so let me go, okay. Then they would have to go to the files and pull up the files and get this and pull out, As to where now, boom, 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 couple of clicks on the keyboard with your name, your date of birth or whatever, boom, everything comes up. It says limited access to modern technologies. And see, it's all about technologies. The outdated argument that these devils are using is that it doesn't jive with modern technologies. Outdated equipment, lack of telehealth capabilities, limited telehealth infrastructure and expertise can restrict access to care for patients in remote or underserved areas. Other challenges: shortages of healthcare professionals, rising costs, right? Because those old systems are, the people that are used to those old systems are a lot older now, dying off. And the people that are being trained for the new healthcare system and this new system in general are younger, and they're more used to the computer than all that other antiquated, old, outdated ways. Regulatory issues, also, so like a rising costs, regulatory issues, and cybersecurity risks. It says addressing outdated healthcare requires a multifaceted approach that includes investing in modern technologies, improving workflows and processes, training healthcare professionals, and promoting access to care for all. So this is being used across the board. Because what I did next was I typed in outdated monetary system, which I had a different something else that came up on my phone, which off the top, mentioned technology, and it was all about technology. So it says different perspectives exist regarding aspects of current global monetary systems that might be considered outdated or in need of reform. So basically, out with the new, out with the old, in with the new. So fiat versus gold standard, right? So the U.S. and most countries transition from a gold standard to a fiat money system. And that's why Meyer Amshaw said, give me control of a nation's money and I care not who writes the laws. Why? Because through the taking over of the monetary system of America, which is the patsy for the New World Order, they were able to corner all peoples on the planet Earth, these different nations, to conform to the U.S. dollar. The U.S. dollar has been complicit in putting the world into debt. Now, when they introduced the new system, to get rid of the old system, everybody's on board, because everybody, if they want to do business in America, they have to use the U.S. dollar. So these devils have cornered the market. So it says under a gold standard, currency is backed by and convertible to a fixed amount of gold. And you could read on and on and on. It says cash and the rise of digital payments. And the digital payments have been going on for a minute. No matter of fact, let's type in. Okay, I don't have another. Oh, right here. Yeah. When did the digital age start? The digital age, also known as the information age, is generally considered to have begun in the mid 20th century, which would be around 1950 or so. It says specifically with the development of the transistor in 1947 and the subsequent widespread adoption of digital computers, right? But it wasn't really till like the 90s into the 2000s where it's really taking more effect, especially now in these times, 2025, especially since 2020. All right. So let's go back. So it says, while cash remains prevalent, digital payments are increasingly becoming the norm. Central banks in various countries are exploring the creation of central bank digital currencies, CBDCs, to adapt to this shift. See, to what? Adapt to this shift. So the CBDCs, which Iran is doing, they're going digital. So Iran is definitely not doing what America is doing. Is not an accurate statement, because they are doing what America is doing financially. And that's what the MOTB and the micro CHIP and this MOTB system is all about. And you still have hard-headed Israelites out there, leaders, old heads that refuse to acknowledge that. Either they're totally blind, they sold out, or their pride is not allowing them to accept it because of who brought it out, beginning with Elder Apostle Tahar on down through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. So it says that this suggests that the traditional reliance on physical cash might be seen as an outdated aspect of the monetary system by some, right? And that's why you have a lot of people that have spoken about a cashless society, and they were labeled what? Conspiracy theorists. So it says the Bretton Woods system and its legacy, right? Because the Bretton Woods system, going back to, I believe that was August of 1944, gave America the power to become the world reserve currency, to pretty much imprison the whole world. In order to do business with America, you have to abide by the rules, which is you have to get this dollar. You have to buy into this dollar, bonds, or however the system works. I'm not an economic expert. All right, so it says the Bretton Woods system, established in 1944, linked world currencies. See, remember, this is the world system. Currencies goes back to the word current. A current is something that flows like water or like electricity, right? So it's a linked world currencies to the US dollar, which was in turn convertible to gold until 1971. All right. And what this did was it caused all these different nations to come up under that banner of the dollar, because that dollar was going to be used to bring all of these different world governments into compliance with the new system that they plan to bring in place, really to fulfill prophecy of the MOTB. It says this system collapsed in the 1970s due to factors such as increased capital mobility and the U.S. suspending the dollar's convertibility to gold. Right, that was through Nixon. And the reason why he did that was because the nations were starting to get hip to the game. They said, man, for years we've been sending America all these goods, and all we got is rooms and rooms and rooms and rooms of paper dollars. We want to cash this in and get our gold, get our silver and all of that. And then it's boom, they put a kibosh on that. All right. It says the collapse ushered in an era of floating exchange, and this Bretton Woods agreement that they signed established the New World Order of the time back in 1944. Today, the MOTB, which is a digital system, is establishing the New World Order of today. All right, which that system is what's going to bring about the MOTB, or which is the micro CHIP rates, and significantly impacted the stability of global finance. Right, and that's what they wanted. They wanted to make the global finance unstable so that they can present a new system, which is a system of what? The MOTB, the micro CHIP, the beast system, where some argue in the subsequent period of increased financial crisis points to fundamental flaws in the international monetary system that have remained unaddressed since the Bretton Woods demise. So unaddressed. So since the 1970s, this has been unaddressed. But behind the scenes, because the scriptures speak about these devils with all these different councils and the meetings, right? They've been secretly planning to put the world in slavery by means of the economy or by means of debt. And that's going to be used through the micro chip. And that is the device of the MOTB in whatever form or fashion they do it. It's going to be in the hand, it's going to be in the forehead, whatever hand. It could be, they could put it in the wrist, they could put it in your forearm, they could put it in your bicep, whatever. But it's going to be used to operate in this new system. And it wouldn't make no sense for them to put it on in your butt cheek, because then when you go to swipe, you have to swipe your ass, or they had to put the what you call it on your ass, the reader. So it makes sense it would be somewhere on the hand to be able to make it accessible. Just like right now when you pay for your goods, you use your hands. There's a debate about whether the institution established under Bretton Woods, the IMF and World Bank, adequately address current global economic challenges like climate change and poverty, whatever. The nature of money and debt. So it says, in essence, while the basic functions of money, medium of exchange, store of value, unit of account, remain relevant, the underlying mechanisms, reliance on physical currency and ability to address modern economic challenges of the global monetary system are increasingly subject to scrutiny and calls for reform. And what is a reform? It means to reform, to form again. Make changes in something, typically a social, political, or economic institution or practice, in order to improve it. See? So that's what they're doing. They're reforming the financial system to bring in this MOTB. And that's what they're getting people used to, the swiping and all of that. All right, so now the last one I have, because remember, it keeps saying global, 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 right? Let's go to Revelation 3. And then another one that just came to mind. And then we'll come back. All right. So Revelation chapter 3 and 10 says, because thou hast kept the word of my patience, which is this truth, 100%, I will also keep thee from the hour of temptation, because there's going to be a great time of testing in the world. Because people are going to be put in a desperate state in order to accept, because that's what the devil does. He doesn't just give you the option to volunteer for something. He makes it seem like it's voluntary at first, but eventually they put you in a position to where you have to comply if you want to survive. So it says, it says, I also will keep thee from the hour of temptation, which shall come upon all the world, to try them that dwell upon the earth. When you look up this word world, it goes back to the word oikomeni, which means the whole entire planet, the whole entire earth. And when you look up the word earth, it means the whole entire planet, the whole entire earth. Why? Because it's a global system. And what does the word global mean? Because like Elder Pastor said, we know some of you guys ain't going to look this up. You lazy Judas bumble goats. You ain't going to look this up. So we got to, spoon feed you. Global, relating to the whole world, worldwide. So it's going to be a worldwide thing. And that's why they didn't use healthcare. They didn't use, your ability to drive. They didn't use your ability to speak different languages. They didn't use anything on the planet but the economy. Because Maya Anshel Bauer, that devil, understood that money controls everything on this planet. Remember, Matter of fact, let's get there real quick. Let's go to Ecclesiastes chapter 7. And verse 12. Wisdom is good. For wisdom is a defense, and money is a defense. See? So money is a defense. It's needed on all aspects in order to do business, in order to live, in order to eat, in order to put on clothes, in order to live, to have a home or whatever the case may be, pay your bills. It's a defense, right? But the excellency of knowledge is that wisdom giveth life to them that have it. And that's some heavy stuff. So let's look up this word defense, because the word money here, in both in the Old Testament and in the New Testament, go to the word silver. Show you how heavy it is, because in the Hebrew, the word for money is kasap. In the Greek, in the New Testament, the word for money is argentum or something along those lines, which goes back to silver. Let's see, defense. The word there is tazal. Tazal. Shadow, shade, see? Shade on dial. Shadow, shade as protection. See? So it's a protection. So money is a defense. It's a protection. And these devils understood that. So they took what is used, for people's defense. They used it against them. So now let's go to Ecclesiastes 10 and 20. I'm sorry, not 20. Right, 19. A feast is made for laughter, and wine maketh merry. But money, or silver, or defense, answereth all things. See, so they understood that he who controls the money pretty much controls the people. So the word answereth is the word aina. Aina, to answer, respond, testify, speak. So money is what answers all things. If like they say, money talks, bullshit walks. Well, there you have it. So going to Habakkuk 2 and 5, I'm going to start at 4. Behold, his soul which is lifted up is not upright in him. This is dealing with Esau. But the just shall live by his faith. Right, because the world is going to be put in such a bad situation that the only thing that's going to deliver the elect is the faith that they have in Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. So the just shall live by faith. Remember, Yahushua said, man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that cometh forth out of the mouth of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. It says, yea, also because he transgresseth by wine. This is dealing with his philosophies, his ideologies, his protocols, things that are needed for people to function, goes against morals, goes against your scruples. But because people need to survive, they're willing to give up their beliefs, give up their morals in order to be able to survive and to function and thrive in this society. That's why it says that the kings of the earth have committed fornication or adultery with the harlot. They dabbled in the harlot's traffic, man. Salaki. He is a proud man, that's Esau, neither keepeth at home. And you see that. They don't stay home. They're in everybody's business all over the planet. But yet the homeless population and the situation going on in America, they don't address. So now what do? Well, they're going to start rounding up the homeless and all of this stuff. The vets. The scriptures speak about a thing that's grievous, I'm just merely paraphrasing, is a man of war that suffereth violence. Violence. A man of war that suffereth poverty. Because if you're a man of war, when you went to war, you had the spoils. So the men of war were some of the richest men out there, outside of the kings and the nobles. But in this country, you have vets that go fight for this devil, and they come back and they're homeless. Majority of these people you see on the streets are vets. It says, who enlarges his desire is hell, because they can never be satisfied, and is as death and cannot be satisfied, but gathereth unto him what? All nations, and heapeth unto him all people. Why? Because this is their new world order. And they tried that going back to the Greeks with Antiochus Epiphanes. They tried it back then. The Romans tried, because the Romans just kept they had enough land to where say, you know what, let's leave them no man's, we got the main part of the earth, let's just deal with that. No, they just kept going into, the those Germanic tribes, and they kept, prodding, and what happened? They was spread out too thin, and eventually that system collapsed. Why? Because it was prophecy. All right. It says, so that's your new world order. Shall not all these take up a parable against him and a taunting proverb against him, and say, woe unto him that increases that which is his, which is not his? How long? So how long you gonna do this? Well, you're gonna do it as long as the Lord allows, because there's gonna come a point where the Lord is gonna remove you. You've been given a certain set time to rule, and now you're gonna be moved out of the way. Good. Come on, man. And to him that ladeth himself with thick clay. All right. Now let's look up the word ladeth, because they pickled in it, man. Ladeth, the word is kabad. Kabad, which is to be heavy. See, be weighty, be grievous, be hard. And that's why, matter of fact, let me get this other one. Let's go to Isaiah chapter 14. Let me leave that there. Let's come back. To be heavy, be insensible, be dull, to be honored. So now, heavy in what aspect? Because that's just one part. They're laden, that's heavy, laden with what? Thick clay. And you thinking like clay, they just putting clay on people? No. When you go to the Hebrew here, the word there for clay is not the regular Hebrew word for clay. It's the word ibat yat. All right? Which, when you look up the word ibat yat, it means weight of pledges, heavy debts. So how did they bring the world and heap the whole world to them? By these heavy debts that they imposed on the world. All right? And it says here, something pledged, right? Because when you take a loan out, you have to have what? Collateral. A pledge is a collateral. And what is the pledge? The pledge is the people. That's why really the US dollar, which is not money, relies on the belief that the American people in the world have that it is money in order to function, right? It says an example, collectively pawned goods, right? You pawn goods, and what they give you something for that. Thick clay by a false etymology. So weight of pledges, heavy debts. Let's see. Pledging of goods. Hence, load of debt, which one has what? Contracted. Yeah, because why? They put you into a system where the thing they gave you as money has pretty much put us into debt, heavy debt. That's why within the last, not even 10 years, the last 5 years, 4 years, about 5 years or so, the national debt has exploded exponentially, going up by trillions of dollars. Boom, 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 boom. When you go back to the 70s, 80s, they had, I'm not sure what year the debt clock was set up down on 34th. I believe that's Penn Station, if I'm not mistaken. I believe that's where they had it at. If I'm mistaken, Salakia, I believe that's where they had it at. I believe it was on 34th by Penn Station. Back then, the debt clock was going up, but not like it is today. Why? Because the more printing they do, the less value the dollar has. And the more printing they do, the faster that debt goes up. So today, the debt is exploded exponentially. Why? Because that is what they use to put the world into heavy debt. Now that antiquated system that was used to indebt the people is now being removed to bring in the new system. The national debt clock was actually located at Penn Station. Okay, hey, however, the original clock installed in highlight to highlight the growing debt was erected by Seymour Durst on February 20, 1989. Check that out, 1989. The water, that's the fact checker. Hey, and brother, I got to say, the elder Apostle Gabar asked about the Carl Sanders, and I looked it up. I found that same info, but I didn't see the picture. I said, I don't know, that might not be him. And then you put it up on this channel, and I went there, and I clicked on it. I said, okay, that's the same one. So, but hey, that's the spirit is on that man right there, man. All right. It says here, the meaning taken is that of accumulation of pledges. So what is an accumulation of pledges? An accumulation of just use the word to collateral. See, that's why whenever you take out a loan, what do you have to have? Collateral, whether it's jewelry or a vehicle or a home, something of value. Just like you go to a pawn shop. You can't go to a pawn shop and tell them to give me some money. You ain't giving them nothing. You got to give them something of value. Same thing. It's a pledge. And through that pledge, they cause the world to come into straight up heavy debt. And this is where now you have this whole system coming together as one in a global system. And they're saying that healthcare is outdated, and then that's going to move into the cash is so dirty, it's outdated. We got to, you can see the whole picture unraveling in front of your eyes if your eyes are open. So let's read this one more again. It says, shall not all these take up a parable against him and a taunting proverb against him and say, woe to him that increaseth that which is not his. And how have they done that? By this heavy debt. How long? Well, until the Lord take him out of the way. Only he who letteth will not let until he be taken out of the way. And to him that ladeth himself with thick clay, that has put the world pretty much in heavy debt. All right? Through this dollar that was the world reserve currency back in 1944, which began the new age or the new world order. Today, the new world order is also going to be predicated upon the MOTB, which is the micro CHIP. Prior to America having the world reserve currency, it was Britain, the British pound. Prior to Britain having the world reserve currency, it was the Dutch guilder, going back to the 1600s. Prior to that, it was the I forgot the name of it. It starts with an A. But it was a conglomeration of different nations, the different so-called European nations. I believe it started with an A. But it's not important, But it just shows you how each time a new monetary system is introduced, it begins a new world order, establishes a new world order, because everything is predicated upon the economy. Okay. All right. So let's go from that Isaiah 14 and 5. I'll start at 4. I started at 3. And it shall come to pass in the day that Yahweh shall give thee rest from thy sorrow. So these are signs that will follow, when we're about to be delivered. When the Lord is about to give us an end, the Dutch bank florin was the dominant currency in Europe over much of the 17th and 18th centuries, right? And then you had, I can't remember the name of it. It was a group of nations. It was, I don't know if it was a dynasty or whatever the case may be, but it's not important, bro. But the water. So it says, and from thy fear and from the hard bondage wherein thou was made to serve, that thou shalt take up this proverb against the king of Babylon and say. So basically, when the Lord was about to deliver us, the prophets would pop up through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bashem El Shai, cursing this devil out, mocking them, and say, how have the oppressors ceased? The golden city ceased. And when you look up this word golden city, it goes into exactress of gold, because America is known as feminine, and they exact gold. When you exact something, you're pretty much demanding payment from them at the threat of death or incarceration or whatever the case may be. That's why when you're in debt to the IRS, what they do, they come and they strip you of your goods, or they lock you up, or both. You see? So it says the Lord have broken the staff of the wicked and the scepter of the rulers, right? Because their power is going down. This is why other nations are trying to get out of the US dollar to trade among themselves, but at the same time, everything is going digital because the rulers of these different nations are in bed with America, regardless. Just bear with me 1 second, Salakia. Got my trusty bolster for my back. All right, so got this delicious cucumber, celery, ginger, and parsley juice. Where you at, Elder? Kanak? Shalom. Just messing with the brother. All right, let's go back here because I want to get something else. So the next thing I posed, or question I posed, was evolving global financial landscapes, because I read that somewhere and I'm not sure where I read it at, but that's what popped up. So I said, let me look that up, see what it says. So it says the global financial landscape is currently undergoing a significant transformation, right? Changing of form, driven by a confluence of interconnected factors. Interconnected. So you got to read into what these devils are saying. Interconnected means what? Everything coming together as one. New world order, one world government, one world economic system. Proverbs 22:22. Rob not the poor, because he is poor con. Neither oppress the afflicted in the gate. Right, and that's what they do. They strip people of their goods to make them dependent upon the government, the very government that has set them up to be in this debt, because the government is not run by righteous rulers. The government is run by wicked, greedy politicians that are lobbying for the corporations of the Fortune 500 families, the international banking families. And they'll call you a conspiracy theorist if you say that. Okay. Key drivers: digital transformation and technological innovation. See, everything goes back to technology. So when we looked up outdated healthcare, when we looked up outdated monetary system, when we looked up evolving global financial landscapes, everything went back to what? Technology, technological, some type of technology, innovation. It says the rise of mobile banking, see, digital wallets and digital currencies has revolutionized how customers interact with financial institutions. And this is done purposely to bring in what? The MOTB system, this beast system. According to Columbia Business School, embedded finance, integrating financial services into non-financial platforms, is becoming a key trend, says Global Banking Finance Review. Open banking, enabling secure data sharing with third-party providers, empowers consumers and fosters innovation, right? Collaboration between traditional banks and fintech companies is accelerating the development of advanced technologies like blockchain, AI, and cloud computing. See, everything is predicated upon technology, the digital age, right? It says data analytics and machine learning are crucial for deriving insights, anticipating customer needs, and supporting risk management and fraud detection. Climate related financial risk and economic exposure. Uh, all right. Interest rates and debt levels. Fluctuations in interest rates significantly impact borrowing costs. That's why it says that the servant is lender. The borrower is lender or servant to the lend. No, the borrower is servant to the lender. There we go. So if you borrow, you become a servant to the lender. And these devils know the tactic or the tact of putting someone in such extreme debt that they had no choice but to sell themselves as slaves in order to pay off that debt. See? And that's what this MOTB system is all about. This is why they're constantly, you know, doing things to the dollar to make it of lesser value so that people can go broke pretty much. The middle class, a lot of middle class people have gone down the drain to the poorhouse. The same people they look down upon, now they're back among them again. And some of them were born into that, so they're not used to, living poor. They always used to live in, like a better life, right? So now that's why you see a lot of Edomites complaining and crying that how things are so hard, and we'll just deal with it. We had to. Who helped us? Who shall bemoan thee? Right? Nobody cared about us. Nobody cared about the Negroes, Latinos, Native American Indians. When we was catching hell, poor, barely had anything to eat, Nobody gave a F about us. And what they do, they set up, soup kitchens. They set up, the different programs in the welfare to give you chemically made foods that destroy you. And the Lord still made us come through that. Fucking big ass blocks of goddamn government cheese. That shit never melted. No matter how thin you slice the shit. It was just like that demonic snow that wouldn't burn or melt. That shit wouldn't melt, man. Big ass block of cheese, man. You could knock somebody in the head with that shit. Cans of garbage that they would give you. Chemical shit. Nasty ass bread. Free lunches and all that bullshit. So these people are not used to that. So when we had to go through it, nobody gave a damn about us. So we don't look, save your crying, man. We ain't trying to hear what you got. We don't give a damn. We had to deal with it. You look down on us. Now it's your turn, bitch. It says investment yields and asset valuations. Rising sovereign and individual business debt levels raise concerns about fiscal sustainability and potential default contagion. They don't want anybody to be self-sufficient. They want everybody to be dependent on the government, because the more people that are dependent on the government, the more the people are really dependent on the international bankers. That's what they want. They want total control. It says managing interest rates, evolving regulatory landscape, geopolitical shifts and fragmentation, rise of AI in finance. AI and machine learning offer significant opportunities for fraud detection, risk management, customer service, and personalized marketing, right? So pretty much they're saying that this is going to be the wave of the future because it's going to help you. This is why you might just happen to glance at something at a store, or you might have looked something up on online. You might have ordered something, and then you open up your Bible app, and all of a sudden, the same thing you bought or looked into is advertised right on that app. You know, AI-powered automation streamlines processes, reducing errors and enabling real-time portfolio. Yeah, because there's human error. You know, management and investment decisions, the need to clear regulations and responsible innovations in AI is crucial as adoption accelerates, according to Insight Global. So looking ahead, remember, this was uh, out with the old and in with the new. Out with the old and in with the new is a common idiom that signifies leaving behind old things, ideas, or habits in favor of new ones, often to embrace progress and change. It implies a fresh start and moving forward, leaving behind the past to make way for the future. And these devils know that they're not supposed to, use unjust weights because they have the scriptures. So looking ahead, the evolving global financial landscape necessitates adaptability. See, you have to know how to adapt. And how do you adapt? By getting involved into this digital age. Come on, man. Strategic integration of digital innovation. Strategic integration of digital innovations. And that rhymes. Embedding climate related risk into business models, navigating interest rate fluctuations, and leveraging AI responsibly. Success in this environment will depend on prioritizing customer experience, fostering industry collaboration, and engaging with policymakers to shape a robust and resilient financial ecosystem. And guess what? It's only going to benefit them. It's not going to benefit anybody else. All right. And if you take that MOTB, the micro C here, you're going to be put to debt. All right. So Psalms 10 and 1. Why standest thou far off, O Yahweh Bashem Yahushai? Why hidest thou thyself in times of trouble? So we're in the times of trouble, but it's going to get worse. So who's this? King David? It doesn't say. So it says here, trouble, Tazarah. Straits, which is a position of difficulty, distress, which is going to cause desperation, trouble, vexer, rival wife. All right. So why are you hiding yourself in a time of this distress, this time of this trouble? The wicked in his pride doth persecute the poor. Let them be taken in the devices that they have imagined, right? Because this very device that they have, the invention of the nuclear missiles, the invention of this financial system that they got in place, that's going to be their demise. That's what the scriptures say, that Asaph in Psalm 73 said that the Lord set them up in slippery places. Because, yeah, you're going to prosper. You're going to get the world's goods. You're going to live by your sword. You're going to have the fatness of the earth. But that's all going to lead to your demise. That's why it also says in Isaiah 47 that they didn't consider their latter end. The latter end to all of this wickedness is what? Slavery, destruction. First, the destruction of your society, and then having you go into slavery. And you got to understand, if you are a person that is living royal, eating all the best of everything, right? Top health, because you have the top herbalists, and naturopaths, because you don't deal with the system you set up in the medical system, right? And this is not medical advice. It's going to be hard, super hard, for you to transition from that to living a peasant's lifestyle. And the thing about it is that the crumbs and the scraps in the kingdom that you're going to get is better than the best meal here. So we're gonna have to work something out, because you got to suffer in that aspect of food, in the aspect of these chemicals and all that. You got to suffer for that, you know. So we're gonna have to work something out. We're gonna have a council. Now let me stop. All right. So the word devices here, mazama, because here it is. You know, these devils give us. You know, and then you have a lot of Jake out here that have no clue, no idea. So they eating food, you know, comfort food, because you're catching hell, and then you fucked up in your body, your health, and you still got to go to work. The scriptures say you're going to pay double for what you did, and our hearts are going to meditate terror. So it says purpose, discretion, device. See, plot. And what is the plot? A conspiracy. And this is what they have for the future. These are their devices, and we're not ignorant of Satan's devices. All right? So let them be taken in this. So when they're about to eat and fill their belly, the Lord is going to cast the fury of his wrath upon them and rain it upon them while they are eating. So this is going to be your demise, this new world order, this digital system, the MOTB, the microchip, you know, the total control of the whole entire planet, this global system you got put in place is going to be what's going to bring about your demise. For the wicked boasteth of his heart's desire, right, because they have everything, and blessed the covetous whom the Lord abhorred. The Lord avoids the covetous. He doesn't deal with the covetous. He doesn't deal with the proud. The wicked, through the pride of his countenance, will not seek after the Most High. The Most High is not in all his thoughts, right? So that's why you dummies out there that's trying to save Esau, you're a goddamn lunatic. Because they don't fear the Most High. They have no fear of the Most High. Matter of fact, Psalms the 36th chapter tells you that they have no fear of the Most High. That's how we know that Cornelius is an Israelite. He had great fear of the Lord. You devils don't fear the Most High. All right. His ways are always grievous. Thy judgments are far above out of his sight. That's why he keeps moving the way he does. You know? Yeah, that's crazy work. Trying to save Esau. So the judgments of the Most High are far above. He can't even see it. He can't perceive it. And the thing about it is that it's in the scriptures, and they got the Bible. They've dissected the Bible. They broke it down to the very last compound. But they don't have a spiritual bone in their body to be able to decipher the spiritual aspects of the scriptures. The only thing that they can decipher are anything that's physical. That's why they can, they can break down the history, go through the history. They can go through certain prophecies that have been fulfilled already, that goes back into history, into empires. And they see how all of these empires fell for the wickedness and everything. But yet this place here is established upon the wickedness of those empires and the wickedness that they've, amassed here in America. Man, it says, as for all his enemies, he puffeth at them, right? And that's why it speaks about even your own allies hating your guts, because your look was more stout than your fellows. And you puff at everybody, including your own. He hath said in his heart, I shall not be moved. Yeah, because they believe in their heart of hearts that their houses shall continue forever. For I shall never be in adversity, and they never think they're going to go down. Isaiah 47 chapter comes in mind there. It says, his mouth is full of cursing and deceit and fraud. And this is how they got the world. Cursing, deceit, and fraud. Matter of fact, let me look up that word, cursing. Cursing. The word is Allah, with a ha at the end. When you have the word Allah, when you in the English you see L, just these two, that's a God or power. This one here, Allah, is what we're about to read here. The curse, the cursing, an oath, covenant, right? And that, what is that? That's this pledge that the world made with America, the exactress of gold, right? And then you also have Al-Ha. Al-Ha, I think it's these, if I'm not mistaken. All right, so let's go back. So that's the cursing. The cursing here is not putting curses on people, but putting pledges on people, putting people in a bind through contracts. Deceit and fraud under his tongue is mischief and vanity. He sitteth in the lurking places of the villages. In the secret places does he murder the innocent. His eyes are privily set against the poor. Right, and this is why they have a total surveillance system around the world, and it's increasing more and more. They show you that when did that movie come on? 1998, Enemy of the State. They show you that back then, Enemy of the State, that they had surveillance everywhere. And how did they find him, Will Smith? Because they went for, okay, this camera, they had a drone here, they had a satellite over there, and then he ran into a store, and they, through their computer technology, they were able to access the camera in that store and saw him, and, saw that the dude put something in there and then took off, So how much more from then to now is there greater surveillance? He lieth in wait secretly as a lion in his den. And that's what they do. He lieth in wait to catch the poor. He doth catch the poor when he draweth him into his net. And what is a net? A trap. And that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to draw the elect and Israel in general into this net, into this trap. But you're only going to get the ones the Lord doesn't want. Rashath, net, see, for catching. A judgment of leaders leading people to sin, yeah. And this is what it is. Because the MOTB, the micro C hip, if you take it, it is a sin, but it's not sin in general. It is the micro C hip. But it is a sin to take it, because there are penalties and repercussions that come behind it if you take it. But it's not just sin, like the IUIC says, it's sin in all its forms, whether political or religious, like Elder Pastor said, whatever that means. So as a trap for man, and this is what they have. They have a trap for man, right? Network, brazen for altar or tabernacle, all right? Net as catching animals, right? And it's a trap. So the world is being set up and imprisoned by this digital system. And it's going to get to the point where we're going to be in the midst of all of that. And Lord's will, we be the elect. And the Lord is going to deliver us out of that. Let's go real quick to Isaiah. I'm sorry, not Isaiah. I always get those mixed up. Psalms 124. And I believe it's 8. Right. Our soul is escaped as a bird out of the snare of the fowlers. A fowler is a bird catcher. The trap is this new world order system that they're putting in place, a digital system. We're going to be in the midst of it, but the Lord is going to make a way for us to escape. That's why it says, he that abideth under the shadow of the Almighty, in the book of Psalms 91. Matter of fact, let me get it real quick. So I want to get the rest of that quote. Psalms 91 and 1. He that dwelleth in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. So this is going to be the escape. So the escape is, first of all, you have to be an Israelite. Second of all, you have to be a part of the elect. Third of all, you have to have the names of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. And fourth of all, you have to be doing what the Lord said for us to do. And the elect will do that. When the Lord comes back, he's going to say, good servant, you did that which is good, to the elect that have done his work. So Psalms 124 and 7, our soul is escaped as a bird out of the snare of the fowler, out of his trap. The snare is broken, because the Lord is going to make a way for us to escape somehow, some way. And we are escaped. So that means the elect are going to be in the midst of all of this. In the midst of Jacob's trouble, in the midst of martial law, concentration camps, detention centers. But in the midst of the hour of temptation, for the micro C hip, the MOTB. But what the Lord said, because you kept the word of my patience, I also will keep thee from the hour of temptation. So don't worry, I got you. Yep, good precepts, brother. For Psalms 18:3, I will call upon the Lord who is worthy to be praised. So shall I be saved from mine enemies. Beautiful. Luke 21:35-36, for as a snare shall it come on all them that dwell upon the face of the whole earth. Right. There's destruction. It says, watch ye therefore and pray that always that you may be accounted worthy to escape all these things that shall come to pass and to stand before the Son of Man. Beautiful. All right, so now let's go back to Psalms 10 and 10. He croucheth and humbleth himself, right? You know, we need to do, you know, things better. You know, I mean, we need to get better situations in America. You know, help the homeless. You know, help feed the homeless. You know, and feed the people that are starving, and you know, make their lives better. You know, get rid of this outdated health care and bring about, you know, the new health care. You know, it's going to be more proficient. You know, so this is how they're crouching and humbling themselves as if they're benevolent. But didn't you already get stung by this devil when he was brought into office and promised to do all these things that he hasn't done? But these people are still stuck on stupid. The poor may fall by what? By his strong ones. Because eventually they're going to send the military out to do that. That's why I said they shall be as madmen, sparing none. Because a new world order is going to be predicated upon, first it's going to be voluntary, then it's going to be mandatory. When it's mandatory, that's when the forces come out. You see? He hath said in his heart, the Most High hath forgotten, he hideth his face, he will never see it. Right, so he doesn't think that the Lord is going to step to him and deliver us. Arise, O Yahweh Bashem El Shai, O power, lift up thine hand, forget not the humble. Wherefore doth the wicked contemn the Most High? He hath said in his heart, thou wilt not require it. Thou hast seen it, for thou beholdest mischief and spite, to requite it with thy hand. The poor committeth himself unto thee, thou art the helper of the fatherless. So we committed our help to the Most High. Break thou the arm of the wicked and the evil man. Right, break their power. Because no one's going to be able to bring this devil down but Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. Seek out his wickedness till thou find none. You know? And the Lord is going to wipe this place out completely. America is the lake of fire. Yahweh Bashem Yahushai is king forever and ever. The heathen are perished out of his land. Right? Because right now, the heathen are in that land. Jerusalem shall be trodden down of the Gentiles until the time of the Gentiles be fulfilled. Because it's different, it's worded different in Romans 11. Luke 21 is dealing with the heathen, actual heathen. Romans 11 is dealing with the Israelite, foreigners. It says, Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, thou hast heard the desire of the humble, thou wilt prepare their heart. And that's why it says, and wisdom and knowledge shall be the stability of thy times and strength of salvation. That's why the Lord said, I will give you pastors according to my heart, which will feed you with knowledge and understanding. Why? Because that knowledge and understanding that you're going to be fed with is going to be used as a protection in these times that are coming. Thou wilt cause thine ear to hear, to judge the fatherless and the oppressed, right? Because these devils ain't going to do it. That the man of the earth may no more oppress. See? So these devils will be taken out. So let me leave you with this, Isaiah 26 and 18. And I'm going to read it in different, see what it says in the different translations. So it says, we have been with child, we have been in pain. We have, as it were, brought forth wind, right? Because we haven't been delivered yet. The summer is ended, the harvest is past, and we are not saved. We have not wrought any deliverance in the earth. We catching hell. That's why Ezra said, Lord, you know, if we your people, then why don't we have an inheritance with the world? It says, neither have the inhabitants of the world fallen. That's dealing with Esau, their power structure. Let's see what it says in the NLT. We too writhe in agony, but nothing comes of our suffering. We have not given salvation to the earth. nor brought life into the world. Now we were with child, we writhed in labor, but we gave birth to wind. We have not brought salvation to the earth, and the people of the world have not come to life. Nah, let me see. The inhabitants of the earth have not fallen. Nepal, which means to fall, fallen ones. See, it's not talking about what that other shit talked about. The other translations, they see those translations be on point a lot of times, but sometimes they go off to fall, right? Lie, be cast down. So the inhabitants of the world, Esau, have not been cast down. You see? So I don't know what the hell the NLT and the NIV were talking about. It was totally off, talking about some uh, brought life into the world. And the world has not come to life. No, that's not what it's talking about. There's no word, nowhere in there do you find the word life. The word is fallen. Nepal. This is the same word that is in Genesis, the 6th chapter, and I believe is the 4th verse, where it speaks about giants. The word that really should be there should be fallen ones. Where it says giants, there were giants in the earth. There were fallen ones in the earth. Giant as far as reputation, sons of the Most High. All right, so with that, wow.